The graduation address gives us the opportunity to hear from a distinguished member of our alumni community. And we're very fortunate today that the address will be delivered by Dr. Jane Oppenheim. Dr. Oppenheim is the Scientific and Operations Director of Ego Pharmaceuticals. She has a passion for sustainability and oversees projects to ensure Ego Pharmaceuticals is impacting positively on the environment. Current programs including the minimisation of water and energy waste usage. For over 3 decades, Dr. Oppenheim has led the scientific development of dermatological products at Ego, with 5 market leaders in Australia, including head lice, sun protection, therapeutic skincare. Dr. Oppenheim continues to lead quality assurance teams driving process improvement in pharmaceutical regulations, in the pharmaceutical regulations industry. I now have much pleasure in inviting Dr. Jane Oppenheim to deliver today's graduation address.
Chancellor, Mr. Simon McKeon, President and Vice-Chancellor, Professor Margaret Gardner, Dean of the Faculty of Science, Professor Jordan Nash, Dean of the Biomedical Sciences, Professor John Carroll, members of the faculty, family and friends, and especially the new graduates of Monash University. Good afternoon, everybody. The Robert Blackwood Hall is a space with a real significance to me. I've attended concerts and talks, exams, and my own graduations here. I'm honoured to be asked to give this address. As I reflect on my life, I'm happy to share with you 3 things I've learnt along the way. And if you would listen, I'll tell you a little bit about my history so you can put my advice into perspective. I remember when I was about 10, I watched a television show called The 3 Beauty Queens, a documentary about Elizabeth Arden, Helena Rubinstein and Estee Lauder. It was a story that compared and contrasted their paths towards successful personal care companies. And I remember at the time thinking, cool, I wonder if I could do something like that. I went on much as before. I completed school focusing on the STEM subjects, and then I chose Monash University. I remember clearly my thought processes. It seemed like a radical university to me with spirited student politics and lots of discussions about social and sexual agendas. I knew this because my brother was at Monash studying medicine and my sister was at Monash studying geology. I wanted to be part of the fun, but more than that, I didn't want to let the side down. We were now a Monash family. I could drive a car to Monash. Had I chosen Melbourne, it would have been more public transport, which I'd really had enough of in my secondary school. Now, I know that's socially irresponsible, but, and I don't mean to gloat, petrol at the time was 20 cents a litre, roads were relatively uncongested, and parking was free. Mind you, driving a car had its downside. We had a neighbourhood carpool, and it was really bad form to miss a day at university. We regularly had to push start the car. It wasn't so bad from home because we lived on a hill, but getting back from home, we used to have to push the car around the Hargrave car park. So I have to say, for you lot, it's just as well the cars became more reliable before they built these multi-storey car parks. I don't know what you would have done. Still, no regrets. It was team building, bodybuilding and character building, and we survived. I chose science because of all the possibilities. I majored in biochemistry and went on to do a PhD in biochemistry. The 1980s was really the age of biochemistry. The world was sequencing the genome. Biochemistry even made it into the nightly news regularly. Eugenics was the ethical issue of the time. Blade Runner had just been released, and AIDS was a modern scourge. Gus Nossel was in his prime, and he was communicating widely advances in this evolving field. I did a PhD here at Monash, and I learned to make peptides. This was a skill in great demand, and it led me on to do a postdoctoral fellowship at the Walter and Eliza Hall Institute. The Hall Institute was an incredible experience. I picked up a little about immunology and a lot about the way the world of medical research worked, both of which were great assets to me in my future. I met my husband Alan as an undergraduate, I married him as a postgraduate, and now as a postdoc, he offered me a future in industry rather than in research. And I think I'd always been industry facing, so I never really looked back. Back when we finished our degrees, I and a number of friends went on to postgraduate work. Most of the remainder of our friends went on to great jobs in industry at salaries we thought astronomical, but then relativity is a great thing. Alan went to join his family business. The business was then and is now Ego Pharmaceuticals. It's a company that specialises in products for the skin. We make over 120 products that span prescription to cosmetics. Everything we do is to improve the lives of people through the science of healthy skin. Back when Alan joined the company, it was a company of less than 50 people with the sales in the order of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Under Alan's leadership, we have now grown with a compound average growth rate of about 13% annually over 40 years. It's now a company with over 600 staff in 30 cities and 12 nations. Last year, we made more than 25 million units and we have sales in excess of $200 million. All of our manufacturing is done here in Melbourne. We take the best graduates in open and fair competition, and clearly the best represented university amongst our graduates is Monash. I joined Ego about 8 years after Alan, and my first job was to take over the work it started in transforming scientific affairs. I'm pleased to say we now have specialised groups in quality, analytical chemistry, research and development, and scientific communications. I started with a team of about 6, and I've built a team of more than 60 scientists. What I'm really proud of is that we have the competency to take ideas right from development through efficacy studies and market authorisation to the global community. About 12 years ago, I extended my portfolio to take on operations. Here the challenge was coping with our growth rate. We were doubling every 6 years, and we got to the point where in any year we had very significant growth. We had to expand our buildings very quickly. I also recognised the need for a strong engineering team capable of transforming our manufacturing capacity through plant and automation projects. I'm really proud of the team that we've built and the major projects we've completed and our state-of-the-art production facilities. I believe that Ego is contributing fully to the advance of Industry 4.0 in Australia. I'm also really proud of the very strong sustainability culture within our organisation, a group that comes together from all over the whole company to share the Victorian Government's challenge of the Take Two pledge. This is where we pledge to do all we can to limit the increase in global warming to less than 2 degrees Celsius. And we have some really exciting initiatives underway to reduce our use of energy, to increase our use of solar energy, and to reduce the use of water. As a company doing business in 30 cities and 12 nations, we've learnt much about other cultures, and it tells me that if you care for the earth, you cannot delegate aspects like sustainability to others. You have to take a stand yourself. For us, this has meant a clear conviction to maintain manufacturing in Australia. At Ego, our values are quality, innovation, ethics, service and people, and this is central to everything we do. When we interact with our international colleagues, we take these values with us. This sets us ahead of the competition for great staff, in all the nations in which we operate. Our staff internationally consider the way we operate inspirational. So as Australians in an Australian company, there's a lot of good that we can do in the world. So one day then, decades later, and I have to say after launching a range of anti-aging products called Lucent, I woke up and I thought to myself, wow, I've made it. I have joined the ranks of the beauty queens. I can hear what you're thinking, and yes, Lucent really is that good. It's certainly been a full and interesting life. I owe a lot to my husband for the opportunity to do what I've done, but I have to say never in my history have I ever felt like the best qualified person to do my job, but I've always felt like the most committed and the most willing to learn. So that brings me to the 3 things I know for sure. Number 1, be helpful, transparent and generous. I simply cannot remember anyone I wanted to work with or anyone who's been successful that doesn't have these qualities. Those with a service philosophy are the people that become the most respected and ultimately the people with the most power. It's these people that others want to consult. Secondly, choose carefully what you do and who you work for, and whatever you do, do it with passion. Life is simply too short and there's too much worthwhile to do in the world. And thirdly, protect your reputation. Think now about how you want to be remembered, and remember good people want to work with and for good people, and there's not much you can do alone. I shared with you why I wanted to attend Monash University, and now I share with you why I'm so glad I did. As our Vice-Chancellor mentioned to you just earlier today, Monash is named after a truly great Australian, an inspiration to all men, and if you haven't done so, I really recommend you read one of the wonderful biographies. Monash had degrees in arts, law and engineering, and wove all 3 together to achieve so much, whether it was to win World War I or develop the infrastructure for Victoria. What a gent to name a university after. When Monash had a state funeral in 1931, about 1/3 of Melbourne turned out to watch the funeral procession. Now that's something to aspire to, and I got to tell you guys, I'm relying on you lot. So many of the world, the second thing about it, the reason I wanted to, I'm pleased I have joined Monash, is the inspiring alumni. So many of the world leaders and great thinkers and people that simply stand out in a crowd. My mind goes here to Michael Leunig, who was a cartoonist that kept me smiling with his sketches in Lot's Wife, the Monash publication of my time, but went on to become a social commentator and contribute to the major Australian papers. I'm sure everybody's got their favourites. And thirdly, of course, now our new graduates. I know you will have been well served by your studies and your association with Monash. I wish each and every one of you the very best for an interesting and fulfilling career. Thank you for listening. Thank you.